Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. So, it is our 50th episode today, and I'm really excited to talk to my parents. So, I'm Coach Furtado. I'm the host of Bridging Impact if you're new to this, and I really thought it would be a great idea to, bring on my parents who have had the opportunity to be a parent for an athlete all the way through youth, middle school, high school, and now watch their son go on and their daughter go on to, work on and do other things outside of sports and just talk about the impact that sports has, and for those that are listening, unfortunately, this is our third time recording and this is a new way of recording. So if things sound different, I apologize for that, but I am excited to share this conversation. So mom and dad, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right,
Hello.
Justin.
All right, third time's a charm. We'll start with our question, our easy first question. What's your first memory as a sports parent?
Well, I think my first memory, just because you started with like T-ball and just, watching you out there. And then kind of because when you were younger, you don't have as much, oh, I can't even think of the word right now. Sorry, but paying attention's, really difficult for a little one for a length of time. And so just kind of out there in the field, just kind of, dazed and confused or hitting off the tee. That was always exciting. And then dad was your coach for a few years. So that was really exciting. But just watching you was great.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, Justin, it was on a Saturday up in Willow Creek playing soccer, even though that was probably the least sport that you did. But you just took off, I think, from like midfield and advanced the ball and just went straight to the goal and shot and made the goal. And yeah, it was because you usually didn't, you'd be more passing and stuff, but you just charged. So that was mine.
All right, yeah. So that's a fun little goal to kind of remember first things first. I think a lot of times soccer is the first sport that a lot of athletes end up playing. But I think mom brings up a good point about obviously I took basketball and baseball both very seriously all the way through high school, and I think it's a good point that at a younger age, in t-ball, you're not going to expect them to be hitting home runs and running around the bases and taking it super serious. You got to kind of have to let them like explore what sports is all about. So can you talk about some of those early years in sports and some of the things that you think you emphasized?
I think for me, it would be, to emphasize having fun and, being part of a team and, meeting new friends and people. Definitely when you're younger is and just kind of planting the seed about, what sports is being, dependable, being there for your team and being there on time. And that's for me, for younger, for sure.
I would say, yeah, just enjoy the moments, each game, each period of time, because it goes by really quick. And they're all new experiences. So that would be, yeah, just appreciate the moments because it goes by quick.
Yeah, appreciating, enjoying the moments, and then obviously, mom touched on it. Just the importance that sports is for people that have people to learn life lessons, right? Like I think it's really whether it's like accountability, like building connections and just having fun and making memories, having that positive experience, having a positive relationship with physical activity is all really important aspects of it. And I think one thing I know that I learned a ton of different life lessons. And like what life lessons now, that you see me from afar, do you think I learned from sports that you now see me use in my everyday life?
Well, I think definitely being dedicated and passionate about something and carrying that forward, and just about being dependable, and reliable, and somebody that people can count on for being there. Um, that's
And I
my
would say,
thoughts.
yeah. And just like maybe overcoming that over a period of time, you'll have ups and downs. Like when you first started, you with small schools, Philbrook being a small school, Blue Lake Little League being a small program, especially early on, there was, the, the team, would lose more than they won. But then by the time you were, say, 11 years old, everything had kind of flipped, and all the way through to high school, a lot more success. And there was just down periods. You were on a couple of teams, I think a basketball team and a football team that didn't win a game all year. So you just have the highs and lows, and that's how life is too. So I think that helps, yeah, has helped get you to see that it's not always all rosy, I guess, to say.
That's a good point. I think I'll kind of circle back on what she talked about in terms of like hard work and dedication and passion, because I think those are really important values that I, obviously keep to me this day. But I would love to touch on the point that, Dad brought up in terms of just the opportunity we have to just play the game. And then, there are going to be ebbs and flows of winning and losing. And so I'm curious, how did you handle some of those losing seasons when I did have the opportunities to maybe play at a younger age? But when you're playing at a younger age against, more talented teams, teams with bigger pools, like how did you continue to support me in that role?
Basically, I'd basically encourage you that, hey, there would be light at the end of the tunnel, that you would be, whether Little League, you were getting to play a lot. And then as you got older and that core group of you, it was your age group, like when you played basketball as a fourth grader on a sixth grade team, I let you know, hey, eventually you guys are going to be sixth graders and you guys will all be the core, like you and Jordan. And that worked out. Same with Little League, where we had Blue Lake had two teams, which was for maybe, and they had like 20 kids. Well, that wasn't enough. So then you guys went down. It went down to one team, and then you became really, a lot stronger. So encouraging you that, and you would be playing in the McKinleyville League for Babe Ruth. Just letting you know that, hey, that the dynamics will change and you'll get more opportunities, and and you pretty much stuck to that mission. And so we just, yeah, we'd talk about it, and you'd be down, but yet you still enjoyed the game, so you would bounce back and
Yeah.
go.
And and kind of to add on to Dad is that, kind of like letting you, be upset for just, a little bit, kind of, be in your, what you feel. And then, and definitely we want to make sure you're being like respectful and that to your teammates or coaches or umpire, whatever. And then, and then like Dad said, having a talk with you or letting you know that, you're not always going to win and, you're part of a smaller team or you'll be up, and part of later on in life or later on in your career.
Right, having those conversations about, like the ebbs and flows and losing, right? Like just like we, talked about today when my club team had lost, right? And I have some young kids on the club team, some 8-year-olds, and you're playing against 10-year-olds, and just kind of like that experience, similar to what Dad was talking about. Some advice that could be given is, hey, now that you all are playing at such a young age, when you guys, continue to play together, you're going to be even more developed than those that, start at a younger age, and just, helping them, encourage them. And I think, just making sure that as long as you're not putting too much pressure on them, right. And making sure that it's still about the love and the fun of the game and the process and the journey and enjoying the moment. That's what it's really all about. And so, for those, as we've talked about in our previous podcasts that have not, had the opportunity to air, I am, we've talked about me being an emotional player, and obviously, Mom, you talked about like letting me feel, kind of what I wanted to feel, and having those conversations. But what other thoughts would you say, for parenting, emotional kids who, love the game and they love competing and they love winning, but sometimes they fall short?
Well, you just basically talk to them about, hey, what is considered appropriate behavior, and yeah, you can have your feelings and feel, but it is something that, yeah, that it happens in life. Things don't work out. So basically reinforcing that. And luckily you played long enough that you got to see that what we were saying materialized. It wasn't sometimes if you do something for a short period, you may catch only the down period. So um, that's what I would say is over a period of time, things even out. And just so you want to, yeah, be supportive, not get too down and too negative.
Yeah, and that's kind of, what I had already touched on earlier about, letting you have your feelings, but then, having a conversation like Dad had talked about. And I think definitely those are life lessons, um, because things are always going to happen in life that aren't always things that you can't control, and so that kind of builds up resilience in kids to kind of learn how, these disappointments.
Right. Yeah. And you touch on an important point. Things that you can't control. Like I asked my kids today, like, what can you control? Can you control the refs? No. Can you control when the other team shows up? Can you control what other team we're going to get to play? It's like, no. But and asking those questions and having those conversations and knowing that it's a process and a little bit of a journey with it. And so even if they're emotional players, like Dad said at the beginning, to make sure that they're handling their emotions in an appropriate way. And I think sports are a great way to learn those social emotional skills of how to interact with a team, right? When you're, especially, I played team sports. I know some people only play individual sports, but on a team sport, like you are going to mess up sometimes, and sometimes your teammate's going to mess up. Okay, so how do we handle that? How do we respond to that? So those different life lessons when they take and their teammate messes up when they're on a job or in a group project, they'll be a little bit more equipped to handle it. And of course, not all conversations go perfectly. Sometimes you have them in the car when everyone's emotional and all riled up, and maybe you should have waited until the next day. And so it's kind of an ebb and flow and a learning process with it. And so, obviously, what do you think, and I didn't get a chance to ask this before, but what do you think you both learned as, being parents of an athlete for the amount of time that you did?
I think just learning to be kind of flexible and kind of going with the moment, because sometimes, things change. And then also even learning about, like, connections with other people. And I think for me, that's right now, that's all I can think of. And
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, just being, I guess, yeah, accepting that there's things that we can't control. Like early on, you played a lot, say, and then maybe as you got in high school on basketball, your play time was more limited, especially as you climbed the ladder to varsity. So even though you should know that as a parent, that it's basically more performance. So I'd say you learned that. I learned as in the latter years how difficult it is to be an umpire or an official based on having conversations with them where they would tell me, yeah, when you're sitting in the stands, your view is totally different, where we're just concentrating on the play. So just I guess that's something that, because as parents, sometimes we think we want to blame the official or the umpire, and they're human. So that just that mistakes get made. I guess that would be something, and that you maybe don't have a realization early on when you're looking at the sports when your kids are small and stuff.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think it is an important part to have a positive, relationship with the referees. Of course, I think for coaches, it's important to hold them accountable if they're missing different calls, but it's how you react. How do you talk to the referees? Hey, can you look at this differently, right? Like instead of always being irate. And I know sometimes, like when I even referee during practices, like I'm not a good referee, and that's a very challenging job. And to touch on Mom's point about flexibility, right? I think flexibility has been really perfect for this conversation, right? This is our third time trying to, record the podcast. So we've had to be really flexible. And I know, like, I appreciate you both for, being super flexible with your schedules and, being able to make time. And I know that's something that we talked about, is that you're both fortunate to, have jobs that gave you that time. But, can you talk about, for those that are listening, how important it is for parents to, just prioritize, making sure that if they can, of course, if they can, some parents aren't able to, but a lot of parents, I feel like that are listening to this podcast and are curious about, how they can be, better supportive parents for their athletes. What do you think? What would you, say to them about how enjoying the moment? Because, I know at 5 years old, you probably think, oh, they have so much time, but then next thing you know, it's my senior year of high school basketball and baseball, and it's over.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would say that basically enjoy it, and attend us. We were fortunate, like you said, because Mom's job was flexible and mine being self-employed. I got to see probably 95 or better percent of your games or any activity that you or Jenna got to do. So that is an advantage. Go and you were pretty in your, say, little league years and even basketball. Your grandparents made it to a lot of games. So, and I think that kids like that, even though you might, when Mom was maybe cheering on your name out at times, you may have thought it was too much at the time, or whoever. But I would say, encourage the kids, because I'm guessing that is more good as long as it's not too over the top. So attend and participate as much as possible, and support and encourage them. Talk to them after the games, if they're willing, and go over how things went and what they can do different to have a better experience.
Yeah, and that, I mean, pretty much Dad touched on all of it. And I just think that just being out there as much as you can, as much as work or your life or whatever, lets you be. But, whether your kid says, it was important or not, I think that does stick in their mind that, oh, yeah, my mom or dad or, whoever, was able to be there. And just, yeah, Dad, maybe you got your emotional player for me too. But, I was always out there, yelling and cheering. And, that's what I remember, is a lot of the um, emotional kind of parts of it. And those are the memories that stick in for me, is all that excitement and just being there and watching you develop into a player through the years.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is really exciting, and it is, important to enjoy that process. What do you think? Comes to mind as some of the, the most memorable and enjoyable experiences as a parent?
I think for me, like the most exciting time that sticks out, because I don't have quite the greatest memories like Dad, who remembers specific things.
Mhm.
But I remember when your baseball team and you won sections, and just you guys were just so excited, and the dog piles, and just that. Or even basketball, and you were such a good part of, the team, and you cheered, your teammates on, and being that positive. Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah, I'd say, and for me, there was, because I do remember quite a bit of details. So every year had a lot of memorable stuff, but I would say, like, say your 9-year-old baseball all-star, you hit really well. When you were a 12-year-old, the Tournament of Champions, you had, a bomb of a home run. All-star game, you you guys got off to a good start. You hit a home run in your first at bat. Later in basketball for Philbrook in the Pacific Union tournament, you were the MVP. You were really on fire. And then obviously a lot in high school, playing varsity as a freshman. And like Mom covered, yeah, you guys win in sections as seniors, and basically, yeah, your sophomore through senior year of baseball were really strong. Obviously, the basketball team was, as the varsity team was super strong. I think you guys went to state, and you playing each year. So there's, I guess that kind of sums it up. But every year, and there's a lot more, but it's just, I think, too much detail. At least, yeah.
Yeah, it's better for when we're maybe just around a campfire with some drinks than on a recorded podcast. We could go on for hours, and I think, kind of the, moral of that is just that, it's enjoy each year. Each year has its highs. Each year has its lows. Obviously we talked about, for varsity baseball, we won sections title, but I'm sure, it wasn't always easy as a parent to watch me, sit the bench. Of course I was encouraging, but you want to watch your kid play. And so, for those that maybe have their, kids that are sitting on the bench, how do you support them in that way and make sure that, obviously you let them know that you love them, but like, is there any way, because I know it's hard to, sit on the bench, especially, at a high school level, but is there any other thoughts you have on that?
I think just, talking to you, because I don't, we talked to you, I think, later and stuff in life, and thinking that, it was kind of disappointing for you, but I had found out that, you really did still encourage your teammates, and even, maybe you didn't get to play as much, but you were part of that team, and that camaraderie, and that the connection, that carries on, which is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah, that basketball season was, especially early on, was it was, yeah, it wasn't easy, I'd say, for me. And I even had parents that, hey, would say, well, God, he should be playing more and stuff. So that was kind of, but after a few tournaments, and then I did talk to you about it, and you kind of said, you were good with it. And so then after that, I kind of more relaxed and just enjoyed it and supported, you and your teammates. And so that worked out. And then luckily we had the baseball to kind of finalize everything. And then, so it's a distant memory, but obviously when you get to varsity basketball or any sport, I guess, but yeah, playtime is earned and based on, especially when you didn't grow from 8th grade too much to your senior, at least height wise, you didn't, I think
Right.
still about 5'10", so that's the disadvantage in that sport. When you're going up a lot of 6'4" and 6'6", so it actually encouraged the fact that you were able to play. Looking back on it, was a great accomplishment.
Right. And I appreciate that, you kind of like it had the conversations with me, and it is hard, right? Because you have people always telling you should be playing more, and, but obviously the coach makes that final decision. And so I think some of it comes from a conversation, and, for those that are listening, maybe just encouraging. I think maybe if I look back on it, I wish I maybe had the courage more so to, talk to my coach about it instead of just accepting the role, kind of maybe being like, how could I get a little bit bigger of a role? So maybe just, telling your kids to advocate for themselves, or ask, how they could get more playtime. Because I know, I had to, cut a few kids in my first season this year as a coach. I had some kids come up to me and ask, how they can, continue to improve. And now I'm actually going to train a few of them. So, sometimes it's not always personal. It is, kind of as the years go on, and, teams get more competitive, like, it's just like it's harder and harder. Sometimes your athleticism or your height is capped out at so much, and you only can have so much skill. So it is challenging. But I think with that, recognizing that, it is okay, and just to support, your kid, and just being there for them and their game and their team is enough. And so, as I kind of, we wrap up this conversation, I think a great place, kind of to leave off is where we kind of started. And obviously, I rode the bench, right, that varsity year in basketball. But here, look at today I had club basketball I was coaching, and that's pretty much what I do now. I train kids, and I coach at Venice High School, and I'm building out Bridging Impact basketball. And if I quit and I said, oh, I'm just going to sit the bench, like I wouldn't be here today maybe. And if I didn't, play JV my junior year, even after I got cut, maybe I wouldn't be here today. So, encouraging kids, if they love it, and to be determined, to keep going. But do you have any other thoughts on that?
Well, I think that actually, it's kind of in all the major sports that a lot of the best players don't ever become the best, coaches and stuff. Usually you need to, if you are, say, in basketball, sitting on the bench, but yeah, you're understanding everything that's going on and caring enough to understand the game and how to put players in positions to succeed. So I think that, yeah, there's skills. If you want to go on, you may not be able to go on as a player, but in supporting roles. And like I say, it just seems like major league managers, a lot of them or just because I think things didn't come as easy, so it makes them better as the executive. So I think that is one way to see it. I mean, I'll just
Yeah.
like
and I had talked about it earlier, but like the determination and dedication and passion, and and working towards something, like you worked playing basketball earlier, trying or working on improving your skills, and understanding that, yeah, like Dad had talked about, you're not gonna be, most people don't go on future, but being the best that you can be, is, and sometimes knowing that, you might have an off day or whatever, and that's okay. Just, okay, what can I do better next time, and how can I improve?
Absolutely. Yeah. What can I improve? And I know I put a ton of hours in and of work, and you talked about the determination, but I think that is probably one of the reasons I am coaching today, is because I had to take an extra level of understanding. I went to that, PGC basketball training that, I was able to do that summer in between my junior and senior year, that really helped me become a better basketball player, because my drive to make the team was really forcing me. And now that's a lot of my basketball IQ and knowledge comes from that. And so just continuing to encourage your kid, even if they don't make the team, and if that's something that they really want to pursue, because that, you never know what kind of doors that'll eventually open, whether it ends up, becoming a coach, or, they just end up, deciding that sports isn't for them, and they want to pursue, different other avenues in life that are going to impact other people. It's kind of, it's never ending, right? It's a never ending pursuit and journey. And so with the last kind of segment of our conversation today, I'd love to just kind of open it up and just be like, hey, what do you think, what would your final piece of advices be for those, coaches and parents that are listening to this podcast?
Like I'd say enjoy the moment, because maybe your kid only play 2 years or 3 years. Enjoy every period, participate and support as much as you possibly can, because you are. I mean, in the end, yeah, we're trying to make a life, better adults for everyone. Because yeah, there's not going to be very many pro athletes, so it's more about just supporting them, and that would be what I'd say is just anything to look forward as that what they're going to be fast forward in future years, and then do enjoy all the time whatever your activities that you're doing with your kids.
Yeah, and that kind of covered it because it's just really about that support you give your kid, whether, it's going to their games if you're able, and then, or, talking to them after and asking questions about, well, how did you play? What do you think what was your best play of the day, or if they were able to play, or even, oh, what was the best play of the game, and or how could you have, what do you think you could have improved on, or, and just kind of just really opening some conversations, and even talking about, like we've talked about, the what you learn from sports, what you can carry through, like, we've talked about earlier, that dependability and being part of that team. And yeah.
No, I love that. I think that's a great way to end this podcast. And I really appreciate both of you for everything you've done for me and all the time you sacrificed, leaving work early and all the weekends. And, I wouldn't have, obviously sports aren't my entire life, right? We've had these conversations, but they've played a big role into who I am today. And I really love bridging that impact back to the next generation of kids. So I love you both. Thank you for coming on to the
Yeah,
show.
Me
and we're
too.
proud
Thank
of what
you.
you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great.
All right.